Hey folks, BENTHELOONEY here. Well, you saw me list the top 12 movies everybody loves but me. And since I'm all about optimism around here, allow me to do the exact opposite. It's time for me to talk about those movies that the general public seem to agree are of lesser quality, but I myself found quite a bit of value in them. Now, just because I like these movies doesn't mean I can't see why people wouldn't like them, right? No, of course not. This is just my personal opinion, and people are free to disagree. So, sit back and enjoy my top 12 movies everybody hates, but me.
I love the way you walk. I love the way you walk. I'm crazy about your walk. I love the way you walk. You my babe, I got my eyes on you.
Van Helsing. Yeah, the 2004 movie where Hugh Jackman plays the Van Helsing character slaying a bunch of monsters. Don't remember it? Okay. This movie took a handful of classical Universal monsters and put them together in one non-stop action movie. With Universal trying to reboot the classic monsters and give them their own universe, and not being off to a good start, I think this would be something Universal should take influence from. It's not the most well put together story, as it's just an excuse to put all these monsters together. It's good, mindless entertainment. The acting is decent too. You get a mixture of the cast who are trying to take it seriously, while the other half is just having fun. It's well balanced. The movie was a box office success, but I don't know anybody else who talks about it anymore, other than my ex-girlfriend, who I had lots of fun watching this movie with. While this movie was released at a time when CGI was starting to dominate special effects, and it shows, I still think it's a fun movie. It's no masterpiece by any means, but for a turn-your-brain-off 2-hour Saturday night movie, it's not a bad choice. Anyone who's a fan of action or monster movies should definitely check this one out.
I love the way you walk. You my babe, I got my eyes on you.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I'm a newcomer when it comes to the Mad Max movies. I watched them all early last year after I watched Fury Road for the first time with my ex-girlfriend. And I gotta say, I loved them all. However, I was surprised to see Thunderdome got so much hate from fans. Of course, it's nowhere near as good as the first two films, and Fury Road is in a league of its own. But does that mean Thunderdome sucks? I don't think so. It's still the Mad Max we all know and love, but with a few added elements thrown in to make it feel fresh. All four movies have their own style. Mad Max is a revenge flick, Road Warrior is a chase movie, and Fury Road is a chase movie. On steroids. And Wheaties. So, where does that leave Thunderdome? I think it works as a journey movie, with Max traveling to all these different locations until he leads up to the final chase scene at the end. Yeah, it's a little slow compared to the other movies, and there's not a lot of car action. But, you know, sometimes you gotta mix things up a bit in order to keep something from getting stale. As long as you don't stray too far away from what people are expecting, I say that's a success. So, what's not to like? The kids? Yeah, they're kind of out of place, but they're not annoying or anything. Tina Turner? She does a good job acting, and that song she sings kicks ass. The battle scenes? Again, mixing it up a bit. If all the Mad Max movies involved just cars, it would get boring and there wouldn't be as much to surprise us anymore. And this movie is starting to get a new appreciation. But from what I've seen, it still is the black sheep of the franchise. And that's just fine with me, because I love black sheep.
I love the way you walk. You my babe, I got my eyes on you.
Children of the Corn. I've gotten into Stephen King books recently, so with him on the mind, I like to talk about one of his movies that doesn't seem to get a lot of love. When it comes to scary movies, one thing that always gives me shivers is creepy children. There's something about innocence gone bad that rubs me the wrong way, and this movie is an example of that. Not to mention, it takes place in the country, my home turf, so the familiarity makes it all the more unnerving. Also, as a kid, my aunt had the VHS tapes sitting out on the floor, and just seeing that scared the heck out of me. It wasn't until later I watched the movie and appreciated all the suspense and great acting by the kids. Of course, there was some silly stuff in this, and the ending I felt was a cop-out. But from what I read, the original story isn't much like how the movie turned out, so I think Stephen King gets a pass on that. But that doesn't mean that this movie still doesn't have a lot of good stuff going for it. It's no horror masterpiece, but it doesn't need to be. It's one movie that I don't mind breaking out once in a while whenever October comes around. What else can I say but, kids are evil.
I love the way you walk, you my babe, I got my eyes on you.
Ghostbusters 2. I'm surprised that this one is very dismissed by fans. Not too surprised as I can see where they're coming from, but I still think it's a very entertaining movie that has a lot of charm and creativity from the original. It's not on par with the first one by any means, but I think it's a worthy sequel to something that was already perfect. It's just great seeing the boys back together again to bust ghosts, and they up the ante with the ghost designs, and some scary moments thrown around. Yeah, it kinda does feel like a rehash of the first, but the actors do such a good job of being funny that I didn't even notice the first time watching it. There was even a lot of jokes I remember from this one better than from the first one. Yeah, it's an unneeded sequel, but it's an unneeded sequel that's worth a second chance.
I love the way you walk, you my babe, I got my eyes on you.
Wrongfully Accused. Spoof movies have become the punchlines of jokes about movies nowadays. Some say it started with Date Movie. Others say it started with Scary Movie. But a lot of people seem to put the blame on Leslie Nielsen and the movie Spy Hard. Leslie was roped into a lot of bad spoof movies in the 90s. But one that seems to get a lot of hate is Wrongfully Accused. And I find it very surprising, as I felt this was one of the better spoof movies to come out of that period. It's a parody of the 1994 film The Fugitive, but it sprinkles in a lot of parodies of other movies here and there. I guess this movie got a lot of flack because maybe spoof movies were feeling tired by the time it came out. But looking back on it now, knowing what parody movies have become, I think it's a breath of fresh air. It doesn't shove in pointless cameos or make dated pop culture references. A lot of the stuff it parodies still holds up to this day, and above all else, it's funny. There's some generally funny gags all throughout this movie. It's written and directed by Pat Proft, who was the co-writer for Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker, as well as the Hot Shot movies, so he would know a thing about good parody. It may not be a comic masterpiece, but I think that this movie deserves a second look. Who knows, it might develop a cult following. I'm sure you guys will enjoy this more than Disaster Movie.
I love the way you walk, you my babe, I got my eyes on you.
A Bug's Life. And the internet collectively gasped. Yes, it's true. I love this movie. And to my surprise, a lot of people don't cite this one when they're talking about the great Pixar movies. Truth be told, I like this one a lot better than a lot of other Pixar movies people claim are masterpieces. While it does feel like Seven Samurai with bugs, I think it's Pixar's most colorful movie. All the characters just pop off the screen with personality, and there isn't one I don't remember. There is also a lot of funny stuff in this movie. I love the bickering between Hopper and his brother Molt. I love Francis, an angry ladybug voiced by Dennis Leary, and I love those babbling roly-polies. Generally, I think the babbling sidekick cliché has gotten tired, but I don't think that they were a standard before this movie came out. So, I give them a free pass as they crack me up every time they're on screen. So, why isn't this one considered a classic? I guess people felt it was a kiddie version of the more adult Ants. Well, that itself is a complicated story that isn't very clear. No matter who's right and who's wrong, allow me to give my opinion. Grow up, you two! You're professionals! Kiss and make up. Okay, you don't have to kiss, but make up at least. No matter what movie was on the drawing board first, I think A Bug's Life is the more fun of the two Ant movies, and one I think deserves more praise. Some people don't see it as a masterpiece. Well, that's how I see all Pixar movies. They're not masterpieces. Just movies that are supposed to be entertaining, but overhype kills a lot of them for me, where I don't feel satisfied with what I see. At least with this one, I had no fanfare to deal with, so I'm able to enjoy it my own way. Maybe that should be how we look at all Pixar movies. Just a thought.
I love the way you walk, you my babe, I got my eyes on you.
The Three Stooges. Boy, this movie just came and went in terms of public attention. In 2012, after years of development hell, the constant casting and recasting, the Farrelly brothers gave us the long-awaited movie adaptation of the Three Stooges comedy shorts. In an era where comedy movies were losing touch of what comedy was, here came a movie that got it right. And nobody liked it. I remember YouTube reviewer Jeremy Johns gave it a dog shit rating, and sarcastically said it was the funniest movie since Jack and Jill. You think that might be just a little bit harsh? Has slapstick comedy been ruined by people like Adam Sandler and Kevin James so much that people think that there's no such thing as good slapstick? Well, there is, and this movie is an example of it. When you watch this movie, you can tell that the Farrelly brothers are huge fans of the Stooges. All of it is here. The slapstick, the sound effects, the timing. It's like watching a Three Stooges short in color. The three main actors do an amazing job, and I find myself forgetting they're not really the Three Stooges. Granted, I thought the prologue showing the Stooges as kids was unnecessary, and some of the jokes do fall flat. But when the movie gets it right, it really gets it right. It also might be distracting to see modern pop culture added into something Stooge related, but the script is written to showcase how the Stooges would react to those modern things. Come on, who didn't want to see Mo eye poke the whole cast of Jersey Shore? This is an example of something old, yet something new. It takes something a lot of us grew up with and gives it the respectable treatment it deserves. But barely anybody likes it. That'll show Hollywood. We want more distasteful adaptations of stuff we love. Right?
I love the way you walk. You my babe. I got my eyes on you.
Spider-Man 3. Yep, I'm one of those people. I couldn't believe how many people flat out despise this movie. I heard it all. Venom was barely in it. Spider-Man goes emo. There was too much going on. It was too long. Blah, blah, blah. I think this was my first exposure to just how much hate can be accumulated for one movie. I've been exposed to the internet quite a bit around this time, so I got to see all the hate firsthand, and I thought, well gee, if people really hate this movie, I guess I'm gonna hate it too. So I finally got around to seeing it, and I thought it was great. In fact, I'd go as far as say it's my favorite Spider-Man movie. None of the complaints people had really bothered me, because I kind of expected them thanks to the constant bickering, so I was able to watch the movie with a prepared mind, and I really had fun with it. The movie is really fast-paced, and I can't think of removing any part of it as there is something important going on in every scene. Kinda sucks that Sam Raimi wasn't able to continue making Spider-Man movies, but I think this ties the trilogy together well. If anything, all the problems of this movie were caused by the people. People wanted to see Venom so badly in this movie that Sony pressured Sam Raimi into including him. So, if there's a reason why Venom felt shoved into the movie, it's because he was shoved into the movie. Can't people just wait until Venom is put in a Spider-Man movie from the start? Venom ain't the only Spider-Man villain out there. He's not even my favorite. Carnage hasn't been in any Spider-Man movies yet, and you don't see me complaining. Spider-Man 3 was just a case of the fans trying to get what they want, yet being pissed off with the results when the studios tried. Maybe people just need to learn to be patient. It's okay to criticize, but don't beg movie studios to give you what you want, and then you immediately get pissed off when they try to please you. Spider-Man 3 was just fine in my opinion, and I have no problem watching it for what it is.
I love the way you walk. You my babe. I got my eyes on you.
Rush Hour 3. Yet another 3 movie. People seem to have a knack for hating movies with 3 in the title. Well, to be honest, I saw nothing wrong with this one. True, the humor does get a little more crude, which isn't Jackie Chan's style, and the action in this isn't as impressive as the first 2, but it's still the usual Rush Hour goodness that we're used to, and more of Jackie and Chris Tucker working well together. Maybe that's what people were turned off by. It's the usual Rush Hour formula. Well, I always say, why mess with a winning formula? The stunts are still impressive, the characters are still lovable, and Jackie and Chris are still hilarious. Some people might think it gets tiring seeing the same stuff over and over again, but if it's the same good thing over and over again, what's there to complain about? We might never get a Rush Hour 4 as Jackie Chan is getting older, but I still hold the Rush Hour movies to my heart for getting me into Jackie Chan movies. and giving me a whole new appreciation for the action genre.
I love the way you walk, you my babe, I got my eyes on you.
Cool World. Yeah, I know. My best friend and I did a harsh review of this last year, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a soft spot for this movie. Mostly because I'm just fascinated by the idea of cartoon characters interacting with humans, and it's a shame that not many movies did that. This is a part of a rare breed, so that makes me hold it close just based on that. True, it's not as technically impressive as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but I don't think it's fair to compare as Ralph Bakshi didn't have nearly as big a budget to work with. Not to mention that this movie ended up becoming incredibly different from what was intended. So, is that to say that this movie itself is awful? I don't think so. Granted, the story is confusing and hops all over the place, but the overall movie feels like a beautiful mess. But hey, it's still beautiful. The art direction is fantastic. I could stare at this movie all day, and the animation, while it doesn't mold well with the live actors, is still very well animated and cartoony, and this acting really isn't the best. But this movie ain't about the actors, it's about the cartoons. They're the real stars of this picture. Cool World might seem like the look inside of a madman's head to normies, but for fans of Bakshi's work and animation, it's a gritty look into a mad cartoon world that you can't experience from any other movie.
I love the way you walk, you my babe, I got my eyes on you.
Batman and Robin. That's right, one of the most hated movies of all time. The movie that nearly killed Batman in the cinematic universe. I can't get enough of it. Everybody knows the story that this movie was made to be a 2-hour toy commercial, and Joel Schumacher went all out with the production design, and just how ridiculous Batman could get. It made the 60s television show look like film noir by comparison. But I can't deny that I don't enjoy myself while watching this. If anything, I can't say watching this movie made me angry in the slightest. I was having too much fun with it. I guess it's because I grew up with the 60s show when they aired reruns on TV Land, so I was used to the more campy style of Batman, while also watching Batman the Animated Series at the same time. You can't deny that even if you hate this movie, it's at least pretty to look at. There's all kinds of colors and bright lights all over the place. Might not be what you think of when it comes to Batman, but it's still something to be appreciated. There are also times in this movie when it gets so over the top that you can't help but to laugh at how ridiculous it is. Like that pink gorilla. I'll never understand why that's there. Yeah, it's a goofy movie that doesn't take itself seriously, but it in turn makes it entertaining. But is that what people were expecting when it came to Batman? I guess not. But me personally, I like all different flavors of Batman, and this one was definitely the fruitiest.
I love the way you walk, you my babe, I got my eyes on you.
Godzilla 2014. When this movie came out, I was expecting to finally get to see the Godzilla movie Western audiences would take seriously. The one that would allow Americans to look at a franchise I love with a more positive light and not see it as a joke. Boy, did I get the exact opposite. A lot of people I know hated this movie. They couldn't stand the fact that there wasn't enough monster action that people were expecting, Bryan Cranston wasn't in the movie long enough, and the acting by the main stars was bland. Even James Rolfe, who I love to death, said the 1998 Godzilla movie was more entertaining than this one. Wow, didn't see that coming. Well, as someone who's been watching Godzilla movies since I believed in Santa Claus, I must say that this was an amazing movie. It's a movie I'd been waiting ages for, and they were teasing the heck out of it for so many years, and it was in development hell. So I was excited to finally see it come out. It was euphoric to finally see Big G on the big screen, but I guess a lot of people didn't share my enthusiasm. But allow me to counter-argue. The movie doesn't have a lot of action? Are you serious? The final 20 minutes is one big monster fight in the middle of a city. Yeah, they tease the audience throughout the movie, but it's a little thing called building suspense. It keeps you in anticipation as to when Godzilla's going to show up and the monsters are going to fight. But when he finally shows up, that's when it's on. About Bryan Cranston, I don't understand the hype around him, so him not being in the movie too long didn't bother me. And yeah, the main actors are kinda bland, but who watches Godzilla movies for the humans anyway? I was just taken aback by all the negative reception this movie got. Granted, it still got a lot of great reviews and was a box office success, but there was a lot of hate sprinkled in there. Well, I personally didn't see that. As a Godzilla fan, I liked all the build-up in the movie. I like seeing firsthand how the humans are all affected by the monsters. The only thing I didn't like were the Mutos. I just felt they were very uninteresting, and they looked a little too much like the Cloverfield monster. But I had fun watching Godzilla kick their asses. Godzilla 2014 was a movie I'd been waiting for a good majority of my life, and I got what I expected, and I'm happy to see it kicked off renewed interest in the Godzilla movies, and there's more on the way. And you can bet that I'll be there in the theater when the next one comes out. All hail the king, baby. And there are 12 movies everybody hates, but me. Do you guys have any movies you like that a lot of people don't? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay loony, my friends.